This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, I am Somah, and I am with a dear new friend and customer, fellow mother, fellow alchemist, Courtney. And she had a few we had a conversation when we created an event sometime back with a mutual friend, and she has some follow-up questions, and I really, really loved her questions. So I asked her if she would please consider joining me in creating a webinar because I knew that if she had these questions, that there were a lot of other women, moms, people in the world, oil enthusiasts who might want to know some of this information. So welcome to a 1 of 3 part weekly Friday series. And today's conversation is about essential oil usage. Thank you, Courtney, for asking questions. Thank you so much for being bold. And I'll let you take it away with how did you get on this path? Why are you using oils? And we'll jump right into the first question when you're ready.
Yeah. So, I was probably around 30 when my oldest sister introduced me to oils, and I got really fascinated with the idea of not having to use pharmaceuticals on my body, and just using oils. So I went down that rabbit hole and bought a ton of oils and started sort of blending them myself and using them. And I mean, the truth is, I kind of got to a point where I started kind of questioning the oils I was using, and I didn't have enough information. I felt like I didn't know, where to turn to get the information. So I would use them as I had kids, for things, for theirs, very minor things, or just to relax in the bathtub. I used the oregano for my plantar warts that helped it tremendously. So I saw, some of them really working for me. But the truth is, I have 3 kids now, and I kind of got away from it. But I was just recently reintroduced to it, and Soma sort of re-engaged some light within me, and I just want to learn a lot more about it because I think that it's something that I can use forever. So that's kind of where I'm at. I just have these questions are concerning our current situations and our current health, and I just want to know all the information.
Well, I again, thank you so much for asking the questions. And go ahead. What was your first question on your
Yeah.
list?
So I was asking if 2 oils are blended together. I know it can enhance the therapeutic healing of it, of the usage of it, but can it also weaken the um, the specific healing when they're put together? Like, let's say you have too much of one or too much of the other, or not enough of one, and like, is there a real like fine line?
Absolutely. And I don't know that it's going to harm you. So let me first of all say, because the first thing that I'm always trying to connect to is that of safety, harm, making sure that we're not going to, do that. We don't want to waste an oil either. So let's say you're using a peppermint oil, but then you put it in a blue chamomile oil. Is that going to tune down the intensity of the peppermint? Absolutely. It's going to shift that. But at the same time, that might be what you're wanting. So it depends on what you're looking for. I would say the number one case where one oil can negatively, in all hands, affect an oil is if you have one oil that's spoiled or one oil that isn't meant to be used that particular way. So it would be misuse. Misuse or spoilage would be the only way. So if I have take a lemon oil that I love to use in the summertime, and it fell out of my purse and it fell into the car, and I'm cleaning out my car, and I pull out this lemon oil, and I recognize that it's been extremely hot in my car for the last 3 weeks, and I probably lost it maybe a month ago. So chances are this oil is now spoiled. It's a lemon oil, it's a citrus oil, it's already highly volatile in that it has a shelf life of less than 18 months because it's a cold pressed oil versus a patchouli oil that can last 8 years. So huge difference. And then there's a lot of in between. But now say that lemon oil I take, and I have a face cream that I just got from my friends at Taspins, And I wanted to have a little fresh lemon. And I know you have to be careful with lemon because it is phototoxic, all these buzzwords that we can come back to later. So I put that face cream in my hand and I take one drop of the lemon just to freshen it up a little bit. So I know it's not going to be phototoxic because it's diluted enough. But what did I just do with that one drop of month-old expired heat damaged lemon oil? I've now damaged my entire face cream that I'm putting on my face, and I could have a chemical reaction and think that it was phototoxicity or that the product was bad. And really, it was a spoiled oil that negatively affected a perfectly good product.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. And I guess that kind of leads me to a question that's not on my list, but it would, and I think you'll be able to answer it. But so I mean, how do you? I guess the other question is, how do you know which two oils are going to work, synergistically together? What is
Education,
that?
it's like
Yeah.
medication. We don't expect to be our own pharmacists. We go to a pharmacist or an MD. And I do feel that the essential oil consultant is way overlooked and often reasoning because they're way undereducated and they're nothing more than, no offense, an MLM who's been educated in a particular area. They really don't understand pharmacology. They really don't understand Ayurveda, the different doshic, the different seasons, all of the intricacies of the different species, because they don't deal with that. They only have a one size fits all for each of the oils because they're trying to minimize the question. But when you're talking about medicinal healing, which is really what I specialize in, we want to know the species. We want to know what works well together. Another side question or answer, if you have a situation where you have somebody who's really sick and they keep getting the chills and you put a warming blend of oils on their chest and you take a coconut oil and you use that as the carrier. Now back to your other question, we are creating a little bit of harm because the coconut oil actually has a property as cooling. You want something warming like sesame or something neutral like jojoba or olive. You don't want to use a coconut oil with a warming blend unless you're trying to offset the warming blend. If you're using a warming blend, you want something warming. You use coconut oil, now that cools. Now that's going to take away from the efficacy of the warming blend. So it's your carrier oil is really the biggest area where people go wrong in a blend. And I say wrong again because they think, oh, I have spent all this money on a really high quality essential oil over the company, but I'm going to go buy drugstore or grocery store olive oil or coconut oil. And they've just killed, numbed down, and destroyed the effects. It's like having a high quality piece of food and then going and overcooking it for 2 hours.
Yeah, so going back to what you said, it's not harming you, it's just wasteful,
It's extremely wasteful. Yeah. And the harm is in, if you're using it for medicinal purposes, you're now skipping a dose of your medication. Mm-hmm. So that can be a harm. I mean, that can create a psychological effect.
Are you saying then that the best way to sort of get the answers to which blends and such would be through an essential oil consultant?
Or educational program. There are so many that are pop-up where you can take a weekend course. You can take, and it's 3 hours, 3 hours, and 3 hours. And some of them are for free. And I offer some of them. And some of them you get it for free if you buy X number of dollars of oils. And there's a lot of information that you don't want to just jump in. You don't want to go to just, Google YouTube videos and believe everything that comes across. Find a reputable source. Find somebody who can, to answer certain questions, and then start to do some research yourself. There are wonderful certification programs that you can take. It's not for the faint of heart. You don't just go do yoga and teach it to a group of people and start to heal everybody. You kind of need to know what postures work best for what types of energies. You can put somebody into a space you can do this on oil too, where you're trying to calm them, but you don't understand their past trauma, and your tool is going to actually activate their trauma more. You don't know that if you're not an expert in the field. So with oils, with pharmacology, with yoga, with breathing tools, I used to want everybody to learn to meditate until I recognized I was triggering people's PTSD, so we have to be aware.
Is there a certification that we should look for when we're on these websites?
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think we just skipped or just kind of stopped for a second. But I was just asking, so is there a certification or something that we would know on a website that like, oh, this person definitely has the certification that you would want to see?
Yes, and I want to be careful, like if they're connected to, gosh, and I should know this right now, and I don't have my information up in front of me because I don't work with those programs anymore. But there
Okay.
are two governing bodies in the essential oil aromatherapy: the American Institute of Aromatherapy, the International Association. I don't know. I'm sorry, and maybe I'll put that in an email or comment if anybody wants that information. I can personally recommend, one of the schools that I worked with in the beginning when I wanted, because I had all of my information came from India. I worked with pharmacology, therapeutics, Ayurveda, all in the field in India, in Germany, in France, in Belgium. And then I came to America and I was like, but what is the mainstream Westerner looking for? And what are the buzzwords that are making most sense to them? And my hands down favorite is Aromahead Institute. And it was originally started by a woman by the name of Andrea Buhe. I always say her last name wrong. And she and her partner, Cindy, created an incredible course with oils, and it's got anatomy and physiology, and it's a huge investment. It's a huge amount of time. If you're looking for something small, as I said, the weekend, then that would be something, find certain people that you respect in the industry that have their own weekend pop-up courses. I know that Floricopia offered some great weekend classes. As I said, Sabitur Botanicals, we're going to be developing that more. It's part of our yoga teacher training, what we call holistic therapeutic training for healers. We specialize in MDs, acupuncturists, RNs, people who are really in the healing world, and they come do this 200-hour course. And in that course, we do different modules. One of the modules is essential oils. So somebody could come along and take just that module, but be part of this other learning group that's part in person, part online. And if you're just doing the essential oils, that's something that you can completely do online because we can send you the package. Whereas if it's part of the yoga teacher training, we want people to be here to be doing the physical postures and things like that.
Did you say Aroma Head?
Aromahead Institute is an
right.
education center that I did my initial Western. So you can actually get, I am an aromatherapist certified, and it's, gosh, I want to say it's like a $5,000 program or that sort of thing. And, but it's, you own it for life, and you have packages and you have to do control studies, and it's very, very, very interactive.
Wow. Okay, so going on to the next question I had. So my question was how much carrier oil should be used when using oils for healing, and I guess that we can also say and which ones to use.
Sure. So we touched a little bit on that. What a carrier is it's a cold pressed plant oil, meaning the nut of it or the bark of it, or it depends on what particular the oil that we're talking about. The ones that I use most predominantly are olive oil, jojoba oil, apricot seed oil, and almond oil. We need to be careful with the almond oil because that can create, if people have nut allergies, then that will affect them. I love my all-time, if I only have one oil to use, it would be jojoba oil or olive oil. Jojoba oil is like our skin's natural sebum. You can use it on children, and it has a forever shelf life. So your essential oil only lasts as long as the shortest shelf life in the blend or carrier. Olive oil, coconut oil, almond oil, apricot seed oil, they all are at the 2-year mark or less. Jojoba oil, they call it 20 years or more. Like, it doesn't ever expire. It's amazing. So, and it can harden, and it's like coconut oil, only not quite as extreme, but because it's actually, jojoba is considered a wax. Jojoba wax, you often see it called jojoba wax, but it still is the oil. So when you were diluting, it depends on who you're diluting for. A standard dilution would be what I would call maybe a 3% or 2%. You have 1% would be super minimal for babies, for people who are sensitive, elderly, people who are on heavy medications, people who might have reactions. A 1% dilution would be what you would want. 2% would be basically any blend that you make for yourself, for an average friend that they just want something fresh or they want something medicinal. If they need something that's more of a chronic situation, then you would put it at more of a 3% dilution. And I'll go over what all these drops are in a second for those who are like, well, what does that mean? And then you can get into a 10%, which would be what I would call heavy medicinal or perfume. So if I wanted to take jojoba, or if I want to take jasmine oil or rose oil or neroli oil or some exotic oil where it's $85 to $100 per 5 milliliter, I could take that, put it in a jojoba oil wax in a roll-on, and at a 10 to 20% dilution rate, I have a perfume. I smell like that rare oil, but yet it wasn't as expensive as using it neat.
Okay.
So now let's back down from that. 20% would be, hey, I'm making this for my grandmother's arthritic fingers. So it's a really intense. Every time it flares up, somebody with fibromyalgia, that would be a minimum of a that 10 to 20%. 20% is the perfume rate. 10%, okay, we've got some pain. Then we bring it down to the 3, 2, and 1. So if you have 30 milliliters, 1 ounce, that's going to be about 6 drops for a 1% dilution. 6 to 8 drops, 1% dilution. So if we are 2%, now that's going to bring us 12 to 16 drops. Why the variance? Why 6 to 8? Because oils have different viscosities. So if you take a lemon oil and I pour it out, it's going to go blah, 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 and it's going to run like water. If I take patchouli oil or a vetiver oil and I go like this, it's going to be like that old ketchup commercial. Anticipate. Like you're waiting. Oh, what? People start shaking. It's just the thickness of the oil. It just has to go. So different, but there's going to be more weight in that than the 3 drops that came out in the lemon oil per se. So 6 to 8 drops, 1%, 12 to 16 in 2%, and then do the math. So then that would be 18 to 36 for, 18 to 24 for a 3%. So in a 1 ounce bottle, 30 milliliters. So if you're making a small blend, say that again?
Of carrier oil.
Carrier. So the carrier oil is the 30 milliliters, and then the dilution rate of the essential oil would be 1, 2, 3, 10, 20. Now, are there times when I've gone 50-50 on a face blend, on a pain relief oil, on a scar oil? Yes. We didn't talk about carriers like tamanu seed or tamanu oil or rosehip seed, argan, arnica. These are amazing carrier oils that have extreme medicinal benefits just by themselves. So you could use rosehip seed on a teenager or adult who's all of a sudden having this chronic acne outbreak, because oil actually begets oil. I know it feels counterintuitive to somebody who's got an oily face. They're like, oh my God, get that oil away from me. Just give me rubbing alcohol. But that dryness, as we know, actually creates more dead skin cells that get blocked, that create blackheads that, have this issue. So it depends on what you're using. Argan oil, oh my gosh, it's such a great hair and nail oil. And so you can put some wonderful essential oils. They use rosemary verbena, not the senile, and then a patchouli, and then a dawn blooming jasmine, not the night blooming jasmine. And you put that in an argan oil with jojoba oil, and it's phenomenal hair tonic. Phenomenal. But again, people with oily hair think, no way. But you have your hair, you put just a tiny bit into your fingertips. You massage the scalp, that actually releases the oil from the hair that's blocking it. And then you put it on your tips or your ends, or even if you just have short hair, it's amazing what it can do. You add in a herb like bringaraj, which is a wonderful Indian herb, and then you've got even more hair tonic goodness. So yeah, dilution is important because rarely do we use an oil neat. which you can. Get a bug bite, you put a tea tree or cashmere lavender on there right away. That's great. Little peppermint, cinnamon also works. Clove oil works great on a quick bug bite, stops the infection. I had an accident once in India and somebody ran into me and my fingers split open on the spot. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I like probably could have used one stitch, but it was in a weird spot. And I'm in like the dirtiest environment possible, but I did have myrrh oil on me. So I took fresh myrrh oil, put it right there, and it acted. Hi, we have a guest. And so that myrrh oil acted as a natural band-aid.
Awesome.
So for little ones, definitely 1% dilution up until about the age of 6 to 10, depending upon their intensity, their sensitivity, their body weight, their metabolism. You'll know. And if they're like, ah, it's too strong, cut it in half, dilute it again. They'll tell you, like pets will too.
Yes.
I'm going to go ahead and hit pause.
This
And
meeting
we
is
are
recorded.
back. Our guest speaker is currently consuming the lovely world of child play again. So, next question.
So I was curious about actually the little one has what is I think like a fungus on her feet. So I was just wondering, what's the best oil or oil blends to use for her feet? And then, yeah, that's the end of that question.
That's a fantastic question. And I want to lead that into next week's conversation where we're going to be really diving into using Ayurveda in a modern world. I had my 30-year-old, quick background story, had the stinkiest feet I'd ever seen in my life. I could not figure out where this came from. And he was 6 months old, just fresh from the bath, went in, putting clothes on him, doing something, had, playing with the, getting him all diapered up. And by the time I'm dressing him, my face is down. And I'm like, how do his feet smell? What is going on? By the time he was 5, he had foot infections. And by the time he was 10, he had chronic foot or athlete's foot. So unfortunately, I didn't understand any of this. And I was very, very much of the world of, I mean, gosh, when I was pregnant with him, I ate like Lunchables and I got every vaccination known to possibility. And every time there was an option of a antibiotic, I took it. And so I kind of loaded his system up with a lot of stuff. And then as a young child, I didn't really know any better anyways until much, much later. What I ended up finding out was that he was detoxing through his feet. And I didn't understand until much, much later what particular sugars, including yeasts, things like that, including breads, glutens, things like that, that was affecting him. But I made him twice as sensitive. So I'm giving you that long story, not because we're talking about you at that moment, but there might be aspects of it that could be you. Maybe at one time this happened, maybe at one time that happened, or maybe she's become inundated in a particular world of her body is really sensitive. You were really, really healthy as you were pregnant and first nursing her or feeding her good nutrition. And now she's been given particular foods that she's reactive to. The body is detoxing through the feet. So I'm going to give you an oil recipe blend to work with. At the same time, if we're having a foot fungus, it's coming from some version, and this is a big word, so where you've seen it in different forms right now, some version of candida that's coming through the feet. It always relates back to that. And when we can find out what the triggers are, you're completely arming her going into her teen years, because what we were talking about earlier were skin and acne and all of that. Like I'm looking at my 17-year-old and I can just see all the things that happen between 5 and 10 that I was not aware of. So the oils that would be fantastic for the athlete's foot or a foot fungus or something where you can see that the body is detoxing through that area, it's almost raw, it's sore, would be using your tea tree oil, lavender oil. MQV is an oil that people don't know about. It's a derivative of tea tree. It's also known as Niuli. Niaouli. It's not required in that, but for those alchemists who are wanting to know the exact recipes that I'm using, a blue chamomile, and I would use, you could use either blue tansy, also known as Moroccan chamomile, or German chamomile. Moroccan chamomile might be a little bit better in this one, but either blue chamomiles work. Roman chamomile is actually in the German chamomile family. Moroccan chamomile is actually not even in that family. It's different story, different time. And then two different types of thyme. We would use the linalool, which is used generally in skin infections, and the thymol, which is generally not used in the skin, is used more in cleaning products and aromatic antiviral fragrances. But we have it diluted just so much in this particular blend that we put in just a few drops, and that helps with the antibacterial, antiviral that gets into the skin. And then sandalwood, and I get my sandalwood from India. So what to do with that information? You're not going to have all of those oils. You're probably not going to make your own blend. You can find that blend. I'm not sure if Tasman's is going to continue that blend or not, but you could take tea tree, lavender, and the thyme thymol, and you could throw that into the shoe. You could sprinkle that like into a little bottle and kind of make your own blend. You could take the tea tree, lavender, a blue chamomile, and the thyme linalool, because that you might use more often. Who doesn't want to have sandalwood around? Have some sandalwood too. And again, make your own blend and then put that into a carrier oil for the child. Now, this is a case where I might use a coconut oil. Why? Because the feet are angry, they're inflamed, they're hot. And as I said, coconut oil is cooling. So you could find a simple generic meaning Dr. Bronner's. Nutiva puts together a basic, great, natural, organic, unrefined coconut oil where you could take just a small, like a big tablespoon dollop into your hand, and then take, okay, if you only have two oils, the cashmere lavender and the tea tree, and you sprinkle that in there. You kind of want a blue chamomile, and that's great to have for anybody. If you have feet inflammation, you're going to end up having skin inflammation later in some other spot until you solve the root issue. And so again, my 30-year-old still has not. He's got his own choices. He loves his lifestyle, and he's going to have inflamed skin, and that's fine. And at the right time, he may choose to make that choice. But these oils and this carrier of coconut will help to cool the inflammation. You put that, a small amount, you give them a foot rub before bedtime. It will help work at night. And then in the daytime, that's where I might use a neat oil or with a tiny, tiny, tiny amount of jojoba oil. Because it's like the skin's natural sebum, they're not going to sweat it off. And in that environment, I would take baby pinky nail, like her baby pinky nail size, not yours, and put 1 drop of lavender oil in there, rub that around on the bottoms of her toes in the morning while she's eating breakfast, give it 10 minutes to dry, and then put her shoes and socks on for the day. Definitely do foot baths at night with baking soda. That was very, very helpful with my son, and he loved the attention, and I'd sit and talk to him. And, I didn't have my oils back then, but you could definitely use, you buy one of those spa tubs and you put her feet in there and you put a little bit of baking soda in there, and sometimes a tiny bit, like a teaspoon of hydrogen peroxide. And then lavender oil would be fantastic. The blue chamomile oil would be fantastic. Even a patchouli oil, and that's not in my recipe, but patchouli is an antifungal. It helps to, when you have too much humidity in the air, it helps to dry up humidity. It's a great bug repellent, natural bug repellent. It just can be very strong for some people, but that would be fantastic as well. And then you put, as I said, just no more than 3 to 4 drops total in that foot bath, because the vapor of that alone on a young one is going to be very intense. And if all of a sudden she's like, oh, mama, it's too strong, dump it out and then just fill it back up, and the residue will be just enough. Don't be afraid of dumping it out if it's not right. And you can buy like Arm & Hammer or baking soda in like a big pouch at Costco for pennies. Same thing with the hydrogen peroxide. And I don't go crazy because that's still like a bleach, for a natural world. Some of my friends would be like, what? but again, a teeny tiny bit. It just helps with the infection and it helps to dry the inflammation.
Yeah. So when you say thyme, you're using another term too. Could you
The
spell that for me?
species of the oil. So thyme, linalool, THYME is thyme, linalool, LINLOL, that's the species. Or then you have thymol, THYMOL, thymol. And the thymol is the one that's used in cleaning products. You don't want to have that around children and pets and elderly in a non-diluted manner. It's very intense. It's very concentrated. If it's too strong, people are like, whoa, somebody just cleaned with that and they had the proportions way off. It should be refreshing. Very little goes an extremely long way. And so when you're making a dilution blend on the feet, I mean, 1 drop of the thymol to 5 drops of the linalool to 150 drops to lavender. I mean, that's your proportion.
And that will be on the website, like the different
No,
types.
I don't. That's you that you buy, that you pay for. Yeah, I don't necessarily give out. Those are proprietary. It's like going to a restaurant saying, "Give me your cheesecake recipe,"
No,
so I can tell you what's in it.
Like, I mean, on your website, will it tell me if it's like a linalool or if it's like
Yes. I'm sorry. Yes, absolutely. And anytime that we have a recipe on our website, like it says, hey, make this great diffuser blend, it will always tell you what the species is. And that's kind of my word too. If you're working with a company and they don't let you know the specific species, or they just throw out the word officinalis, that means it's a hybrid blend and they're taking out isolates of the oil and they're trying to market to you that they've made it safe for you. And the only way to make it safe for you is to use the proper species in a full spectrum format.
Does that give them more product to work with, or what's
Yes. Then they can take frankincense and use it 15 different ways and tell you legitimately on the bottle, this has real frankincense in it.
And then it becomes Frankenstein. I've done that joke 2 times. It was just so funny.
It becomes Frankenstein. That is a great joke. And you have to tell it the next time we talk to you so that I can remember to bring it to my own repertoire, because that is exactly what it is. And it's all stitched together. I had an hour-long conversation with a woman yesterday who has been with a particular multi-level marketing company since 2009. So you know how deep in she is. There's no way in the world. She's like, oh, no, I know. I've been out to the fields. I've watched what they've done. I've seen this. I'm like, but you don't see what they're doing in the laboratory. No, I know that they recreate this and I know that they're teamed up with the right people. And I said, but for who? For my dad who died of Parkinson's, or for me who's worried in Colorado of skin cancer, or for my friend who has PTSD? We all need different varieties and strains. That's where you gotta find the expert. You just don't go pharmacologically, I don't think that's a word, treating yourself. You go to a pharmacist and an MD, 2. And one will tell you, hey, go talk to this person, I'm not sure. Hey, go to always. And that's what I do. I'm the essential oil expert. There's no naturopath, there's no chiropractor, there's no Ayurvedic physician. If that's what they specialize in, who knows more than me? This is my specialty. So I will always know more. Now, there are going to be times when things that they can answer, I'm like, I don't know. I can kind of guide you, but now go talk to them because they know exactly which herb or which medicine. We all have our different specialty. And so you've got to know the strain. You've got to know which carrier to pair it with. And you've got to know what dilution rate based on the person in front of you and how you are right now this is recorded September of 2023, to how you're feeling in April of 2025 and you're on a vacation in Mexico. Totally different vibe. And people need to understand that. It's like saying, I want to have you have the same, whatever you're drinking right now, you're going to drink exactly that same drink in 3 years and 6 months and 2 hours. You're like, oh my God, what if I don't want that? What if I don't need that? What if, that really is what oils are. We have one more question, or is that?
So I have 3, but depending on the time frame we have,
I've got about 5 minutes and then I'm running to my next appointment.
Okay.
So
let's do
and I can be quick.
Yeah. So what's the best oil for like a back pain?
Definitely helichrysum is my one go-to oil for pretty much anything as it relates to healing. Helichrysum takes cells and repairs copy cells. That's kind of complicated, but it just, all it knows how to do is copycat healthy healing cells, but it doesn't have a driver. So you can have a surface level wound, put helichrysum on it, it's fine, but you have a bone wound and you need to drive it into the bone. It doesn't just sink into the layers. So helichrysum and peppermint are fantastic. Helichrysum and lavender are fantastic. Helichrysum and frankincense are fantastic. Helichrysum and clove are fantastic. They all would have backdrops of why you would use that paired differently. So back pain, I would use my Relieve and Regenerate. What's in there? Helichrysum, peppermint, lavender, clove. It's phenomenal. But if people who are like really sensitive to peppermint, or they have certain medications that they're on where they don't want that the vasodilator, then they could just do helichrysum lavender, frankincense.
Okay, and then carrier oil.
You could put a carrier, so this would be something for immediate acute pain. The carrier oil, definitely, I would always be jojoba. If you want to warm the situation, I would use sesame oil, not just toasted sesame, or you'll smell like a Chinese restaurant. Just make sure it's it's sesame oil. It's pretty neutral. Almond oil, apricot seed oil. If they have, if you're trying to cool them and you're in a very humid environment, wherever a coconut tree grows naturally, that's a great place to use coconut oil, unless you're trying to cool the property in front of you.
And then, so for that, how many drops?
Back to the dilution rates that I gave you. Depends on who you're working with. 1, 2, 3, 10, 20. What do you need?
Oh, I think it would just be like, it's an adult. So
that's what I'm saying. Who's in front of you? What do you need in that moment?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Next question.
The last question is with regard to what would be the like the best therapeutic book to use.
One of my favorite books is Ayurveda and Essential Oils. Is that what it's called? It's I don't have it in front of me, and I should have grabbed that, by doctors Bryan, Bryan, and Light, Light, Miller. Google them. She passed in the last 5 years, but a phenomenal couple. Ayurveda background, and they talk all about the healing properties of essential oils and different formulas and blends and species. And I learned so much on my path when I was pairing the two, and I was shocked with how little there is correlation. I'm not a big aromatherapy person, because aromatherapy still, to me, follows Western, where it's treating the symptom, where they really come back to what's the root problem? How can we use the oil to edge out the root problem? And I really like that. So it's Ayurveda and essential oils, I think. I'll have to search that. I'm sorry. But if you Google the authors, Bryan and Light Miller, you'll find the book.
Okay.
Yeah. Favorite go-to. They teach you everything. If you want to get super, super geeky and hear about some forecasts from the early 70s, still very, very relevant, Dr. Kurt, K-U-R-T, Schnaubelt, S-C-H-N-A-U-B-E-L-T. That was where I did my first certification. He was out of Europe. And he said in the 70s, they're going to basically create, and he talked about multi-level marketing companies, but he didn't call it that, where they're taking isolates and components, fractionating them, putting them together, and they're going to try and sell you on a product for more money, have less efficacy, and they're going to tell you that it's better. and he said this 1971 to 1974. It was written all over the place. And so I don't know if they just decided to do that and went, well, let's bring the prophecy true. But it just, he talks really, really holistically on why you use this, why you don't use that. Oils to ingest, oils not to ingest, oils to use in pregnancy, not. Again, and it's still very, very relevant information. But it was based on a whole full spectrum oil, not something that has been teamed up with the best scientists to determine the ideal balance of what it should be, sort of thing.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, Courtney, for asking these great questions. I know this is going to be super helpful to others. I really appreciate your time, and come back next Friday, 11 o'clock, and we're going to talk about Ayurveda in a modern world. And then based on the feedback I'm getting from everybody, we'll see what our third Friday, September 22nd will be about.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
All right. Have a wonderful journey with your essential oils. Namaste.
Thank you. Bye-bye.